Hello, everyone, and welcome to the audio edition of Mind, Body, Soul, a show about your mental, physical, and spiritual wellness. Well, if you've never heard the term "No, you can't," then multiple times, then this show is for you.
We have two very special people. Forget the fact that this duo, Vanessa Gilbert is my stepdaughter and Mike, her husband, my son-in-law. They both have incredible messages to share with our listeners, and that is what Mind, Body, Soul is all about. Vanessa is a former 911 operator here in St. John's and currently a firefighter in Mississauga, Ontario. Mike, a former police officer in Toronto and now a recently retired firefighter in St. Catharines, Ontario. Welcome, Mike and Vanessa.
Thanks for having us.
So, Vanessa, tell me about your decision to go to fire school in Stephenville. What were you doing at the time? What was your drive and your motivation to do that?
At the time, I was working two jobs, I believe. I was waitressing, and I also worked at a car dealership. And I was at the gym one morning, and one of the guys there just started talking about the career of firefighting. I said, you know what? I think that's something I'd like to do. So I looked into it, and it was actually a 2-year waiting list for the school out in Stephenville, but somebody had dropped out, and I had the opportunity to go, so I decided to do it.
How long was the course and how difficult was it?
The course was 6 months. I had to move out there for 6 months. It wasn't so much physically difficult.
You're used to fitness.
I mean, it was, I was fine physically. It was getting used to being in a class with, 15 other guys and trying to basically prove myself that I could do anything that they could do.
You were the only woman who was taking the course?
Yes. Yeah. So
that was probably the most difficult part, is you felt you had to prove yourself.
Yes, and and the reality of it is I didn't have to prove myself, but you certainly feel that way as a female walking into a male-dominated position.
Mike, that traditionally it is a male-dominated role, and because it's so physically demanding, you walk in as a firefighter, you have to do the same as a man does.
I can only imagine it's pretty daunting for a female to look at a career in fire service and think, how am I going to fit into that? Because it's a very demanding job. From the, you're wearing 100 plus pounds worth of gear. You're carrying equipment that is 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds, which is often half the weight of the woman. Whereas guys at 250 pounds, it's just a really tough road to hoe as a female, I got to believe. But it's one of those scenarios where if you can break through, it is very rewarding because you're in there and you're busting with the guys. And I got to tell you, firsthand experience. We've had a couple of women in St. Catharines that have been absolutely outstanding. They get in there, and as a matter of fact, I would rather go shoulder to shoulder through a door with one of these girls than some of the guys I work with. So it's.
Vanessa, did you ever find throughout the 6 months of the course that you just felt like you wanted to give up?
No, I never ever felt like quitting because I'm not a quitter. And those feelings push me a little bit further to accomplish things. There was times when I'd go home at the end of the day thinking, oh my God, did I do as good as they did? And did I do everything I could? But never a thought of quitting came to my mind.
So then after graduating, what happens?
So I moved back to St. John's. I had to do a work term, and when you do fire school in St. John's, you come back and you work term basically for another 6 months at a fire hall. You basically live, breathe, eat, sleep with these guys, but you don't do anything at the calls. You just basically shadow, just to get an idea of what happens. So I did that. I had a great time. It was fantastic. And then I had to wait to get hired, and that's a different process altogether.
So, Vanessa, that's where the no's started coming, and there were a lot of them, weren't there? So can you talk to us about that?
St. John's hires a little bit different than any other city in Canada. They basically hire on a casual basis, so you don't get a full-time position right away. And that was difficult. So I ended up deciding, you know what, I think it's time. I broadened my application outside St. John's. And I had started working with 911 as a dispatcher, and I had done that for 4 years. And under the umbrella of the fire department, I was able to compete in these Scott firefighter competitions. So I went to and did a couple of competitions and went to Halifax, did the national competition in 2007, where I then met my husband, Mike. So we kept in contact and had a bit of a long-distance relationship for 6 months or so, and then I decided it's time to move and move up and be with him. And then I started the process of applications in Ontario.
So tell us about that application process. And I know Mike and I have had the discussion about he was such a driving force, and he knew what you needed to do with high angle rescue courses and all these other courses that you were able to help her. So
I knew what it was going to take to get her just to come even with the rest of the applicants that she's going up against.
And you knew that she could handle it.
Well, I knew she could handle it, for sure. And so over the next couple of years, we spent money and time. Or I basically told her it was your job to get a job.
That was it.
And that was it. And then I just told her, I said, look, this is what you're going to need. You're going to need this course, this course, this course, this course. You're going to need to learn how to do this kind of math, this kind of aptitude. This is how you're going to have to talk in an interview. This is what they're looking for in Ontario.
It was a lot. It was a lot at first.
It was pretty overwhelming for sure.
Tell us about walking in to write that exam. How many jobs were available? How many people were in that room?
Typically in an application process, you'll get anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000 people who apply for positions. It could be 10 positions, 16 positions, not usually any more than that. And the last one that I wrote in Mississauga, when I walked in the room, there was 1,800 people in there. They had 16 positions. So you can imagine walking in and looking up and thinking, oh gosh, here we go. We got to do this.
And so how many times were you told no?
I would probably say 10 times.
And I guess with each no, Vanessa, that kind of wears on you mentally, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And I guess at some point you had to have questioned this path that you're taking as if it was really the right one for you.
Absolutely.
We got a funny story here. We got one of these thanks but no thanks letters from my dad, because Vanessa and I were out camping. And we knew that we had gone through, or she had gone through this process with this department, and we were just waiting.
Waiting for this one.
Waiting for this one, right? And we were pretty excited. And we got a hold of my dad. He says, yeah, there's a letter in the mail from wherever. And we said, well, open it. And he opened it up, and it said, basically,
thanks but no thanks.
Thanks but no thanks. So I turned to her and I said, we've been going at this for some time now, and I said, you might want to consider a different course of action for employment. And the look wasn't good.
No, that was not the wisest thing to say to me at that time.
Because I remember Vanessa would call me and she's Gary, I got another no. And then, I got another no and I got another no. I remember saying to her, Vanessa, if this is something that you really feel you want, then no is just another step in the process. At some point, you're going to hear yes, and you did hear yes.
Well,
yes.
And I also told her, so good point, Gary, I also said to her that you never fail. You never fail, or you haven't failed until you quit. So the fact that you've said a no, that's just a step in the procedure.
Right.
So the fact that you said no and you move on and you continue to improve yourself, you continue to apply yourself, you haven't failed. It's still a process until you said, I'm out.
Vanessa, let's switch gears a bit. You and Mike compete in the Scott Firefit Challenge or the Combat Challenge. Mike, can you explain the race, which is considered the toughest 2 minutes in sport? Basically what it is it's an obstacle course that depict the 5 essential elements of firefighting. And so you've got two competitors go simultaneously up a set of stairs wearing full bunker gear, pack. How heavy is the bunker gear? Everything that you got on, the bunker gear, the helmet, the boots, the pack, you're about 80 pounds. Okay.
And then you carry a 45-pound roll of hose with you up the stairs, 6 flights to the top, deposit the hose into a box, grab a rope, pull up 45 pounds worth of hose up over the top, down the stairs. You do a forcible entry event, then you serpentine through some cones, you grab a hose, you advance a hose line 75 feet, and then you run over to a rescue randy, which is 175 pounds, and drag it backwards 100 feet to the finish line. And this competition is for firefighters, both industry, professional, volunteer, and we've got teams and competitors from all over the country and the U.S. that come up and do these events. So just so our listeners know, Mike held the open world record at age 43, competing against men half his age. Vanessa is the current Canadian female over 40 champion and set a new record in the process this year. She's also the over 40 tandem
Open champion, where a team of two run the race with one doing the first half and their partner doing the second half. So tell us about your training regimen with this Fire Fit Challenge. I mean, this is, I see people when they finish, they just fall back and that's exhaustion.
Yes, it is total exhaustion. We start training probably in November, December. We take about a month off after the Nationals in September. I have a coach who's also a very good friend of mine, but we start training November, December and carry right through till June. And I mean, obviously there's different processes of the training. We start with a heavier segment and then more cardio-based segment, but it's pretty tough and you got to be pretty dedicated. You know, when some people are going to the bar on a Friday night and you're like, well, I've got to train tomorrow. And so it means you do have to have a little bit of fun, but it's pretty regimented and you have to be pretty dedicated to it.
Winning is fun.
Winning
So when your friends are going to the
fun.
bar and you go, you're like, it may not be fun to rack it out at 9, but it's certainly fun hitting the podium on race day. So.
Right.
Mike, we talked at length about this, and I mean, what do they call him at the fire hall? Calfzilla, is it?
That was his nickname. Very large calf.
He has 22-inch
Yes.
calves.
Oh my!
I don't know how big they are, but I mean, they're
22 sounds good.
22
We'll go with that.
We'll go with that.
Mike, obviously you're built for the sport, but there is so much more to it. I mean, the mental aspect, the visualizations. You could talk to us about, how you approach it from the mental aspect, the visualization part of it, because you never really approached this as wanting to win. That was kind of a byproduct of the mental approach that you took to it.
Right. So in the beginning, one of the fellas on our fire department was at another department, saw the equipment and thought, hey, our guys would like this, brought it over, did an open house. I tried it and I loved it. It was just one of those events that I just felt really comfortable doing and thought I might be able to put something into this.
Because you were a hockey player. You mountain bike,
golf. Yep.
So this was something that you really thought you could sink your
And it was
teeth
pretty cool. I thought it was pretty cool that it was related to my job. So I got into it and I started training. I started trying to figure out the course, understanding where I could cut corners. But before you can cut a corner, you have to know where the corners are. And that's what I tell anybody I'm giving advice to now, is that before you can figure out how to go fast, you need to just figure out how to do it.
And that applies to life as well, right?
Totally. Totally.
You can't go fast if you miss the corner.
That's right. So you got to know the corners there.
Right.
So you got to pay attention to what's going on around you. And sport is the same. And as well, I can only go to the gym for an hour or two a day. Nothing's stopping my brain from thinking about what I'm going to be doing at endless hours of the day. And I've put a ton of visualization hours of how to move through the course and the start and the transitions. So hundreds of thousands of times I've run the course in my head versus 100 to 120 over the course of my 11 years doing it. I would go to sleep thinking about it. In my heyday, I'd go to sleep thinking about it. I'd wake up thinking about it.
Would you get down on yourself if you didn't beat a previous time?
Nope. I've always asked for predictions going into race day, and I've always said I never make predictions because they have a habit of coming back and kicking in the butt. But I do say that I just try to do a personal best. So I always try to improve on my last time. And as I went through the process, and when I started my earlier years, I was just one of many in the middle of the pack. And then as I started to improve on my own personal time, I got closer and closer to the top. And it just became to the point where on any given day, my personal best time on that day was good enough to win.
Because when you spend time focusing on somebody else, and I mean, I see people looking out their windows and saying, how come I don't have 2 cars, and how come I can't take 2 or 3 vacations a year, and we tend to focus on other people. So you decided you wanted to be the best version of yourself, and you said something to me that really stuck with me. You said, I can't run somebody else's race.
Right.
I can only run my own.
Run my own.
Talk about that.
So in this particular event, there's 2 of us at the same time, and you've planned, you've trained, you know how you're going to run your race. And if you focus on the guy beside you, his focus and preparation and game plan may be totally different than yours. So if you're looking at him, you're out of your own element, and then you're not going to do as well as you could.
Vanessa, how do you maintain level?
It's a lot of mental ability, really. I mean, it's sometimes there's some days where you're like, I just can't do this anymore. It's too hard.
We've gone on vacation a number of times down to Florida, and you guys will get up 5 o'clock in the morning and go for your hour swim, and you hit the bed early that night, and
Yeah.
so that takes a lot of dedication. It's got to be something. This got to be something that's just in your DNA, in your blood. It's something that is a passion for you.
It is, and I like feeling that, I like being driven, and I like having something to work towards and a goal to work towards. And I often say to people, people say, well, I'll get to the gym if I have time. Well, I'll get to everything else when I have time, because that's my priority. I mean, there's times where you're like, maybe I can just go have fun with everybody else. But you have to do what you have to do to be the best that you can be, and that goes back to when I was applying for fire departments. I had to be the best. So, and I live my life like that.
So picking up with that visualization thing that I was talking about earlier, Gary, I chose not to focus on winning, because if you focus on winning, you're going to lose more than you're going to win, because winning is very difficult to do. So I focused on incremental improvement. And by incrementally improving my abilities, my speed, my times, that brought me up closer to the pinnacle. And then it just gave me the opportunity on any day to win. Didn't win every time, but I knew that I was improving, and that was important.
But in your mind, you won every time.
In my mind, I was winning because I was improving individually.
And you were becoming the best version of yourself
That's
that
right.
you could possibly have. And what a greater application in that you can apply to every aspect of your life.
Sport, relationship, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. If you take the small steps, if you improve on the small steps, that will get you closer to the winning or to the feeling better about yourself and things that you do.
Just so our listeners understand, if you wanted to go see Mike Gilbert's world record, and it was there on YouTube a little while ago, so if you go on YouTube and just search for Mike Gilbert, you will see his world record performance. So we're going to switch gears and look at different kind of challenge for two of these people. So Mike, you've always been focused, driven to be your best, had everything under control. You knew what to do, had your eye on the target every day, and then it all changed. You were diagnosed with leukemia in 2014, and all that control was gone. Can you talk about that challenge?
Yeah, that was a bit of a curveball, I'm not going to lie to you. Actually, we were down here at Christmas, and everything was motoring right along. Vanessa and I were training for an Ironman that we had put 6 months worth of work into already at that point.
And my wife noticed lumps on your neck or something.
Yep, and I just pawned it off to eating all the Newfoundland food and sweets and what you normally do at Christmas and whatnot. But we just went about our business, and we got home, and Vanessa said, you should really get that checked out. So we went to the doctor, and I'll never forget it. It was January 14th, 3:05. My oncologist said, you've got cancer. And I swear to God, the walls were closing in right there. Room went dark. The first question that came to my head is, how long do I have to live? And
your mother was diagnosed with cancer 6 months earlier.
Yep, she had brain cancer that had metastasized from her lungs, and so she'd been going through that. So I'm like, holy crap, how am I gonna take care of me, take care of her, and so yeah, that was on the 14th of January.
And you were training for an Ironman.
And we had been training for an Ironman, and
you still ran the Ironman.
Well, we did. That day, the time stopped. Literally, the time stopped from that afternoon. It was just, I was just a zombie. I'm like, what am I going to do?
Because you can't prepare for that, right? Like we were talking last night even about this interview, and you were saying, okay, let's sit down and Vanessa, let's see how we deal with this. You can't do that, right? You can prepare for the combat challenge. You can prepare for all this stuff.
You can prepare for a lot of curveballs in life.
Yeah.
But when one comes out of left field, and it was something that I couldn't physically fix. It's not like fixing something at home.
Because you were a fixer, right?
I'm a fixer. If it's broken, I'll fix it. And if I don't know how to fix it, I'll find out how to fix it.
Tell me, I wait for him to go down every year to fix stuff in the house.
Taps and lights and whatnot. So, but it's true. And so we went home and we just looked at each other and thought, holy crap, now what?
Vanessa, how was it for you?
You know, when one person in the family gets diagnosed with something like this, you really almost feel like it's both of you, because he was my strength. He was my rock for the last, 8 years of our lives, and he did everything.
And now you got to hold it together.
Now
Now you got to be his
Now
rock.
it's time for me to be like, okay, now it's my turn.
It was tough, wasn't it?
It was one of the worst things I had to go through.
And emotionally, like you were just saying to Vanessa, where she had to become the rock. So yeah, I am used to holding things together, and I'm gone. Like I'm no longer able to do that. And now I'm looking at her, and it's not an option. It's not like, hey, look, do you think you can do this? Nope. You have to do this.
You can't give it back. You can't say, you know what, I don't feel like having that today, and let's move on.
Just kidding. I feel fine. Move on.
So I had been coming home from work one morning, and I stopped the car in an empty parking lot, and I literally broke down, and I didn't want to go home.
That's when you called us.
It was tough. I didn't want to go home. I didn't want him to see me cry. I didn't want to deal with what might be happening today. And it was at that time I had to say, do I live like this, or do I pick my feet up and move on and be strong and deal with it? And that's what I did.
Life can throw you a lot of pretty nasty curveballs, and I know I always say to people, the quicker you can learn acceptance, or to get to that fifth stage of adversity, acceptance, is when you finally learn to live your life the way it was meant to be. So can you talk about that acceptance part?
It was. There was a long time where you're almost in denial.
Yes.
Where you get the news, and then for a little while he was still feeling okay. So you're like, okay, well, everything's normal, everything's fine, and you're in a bit of a denial stage, and you seriously go through the stages of grief. You're angry. You're mad. I was angry with him for making me deal with this. But then of course it's obviously not his fault. But there's a certain period of time before you're like, okay, what am I going to do? What choice am I going to make here?
So I should also mention, when I got diagnosed in 14, it was early. It was really early in the disease. So aside from those couple of lumps, I really didn't have any side effects or anything at that particular moment. So it was a bit of a blessing in disguise that it was diagnosed so early. It was something that we could deal with. And so for the rest of 14 and 15, we were pretty much normal. I had it.
Because you did run, do the Ironman.
Ultimately, we did continue doing it, because that's what we sat down. We said, well, we can't fold up our tent and go home. Life is going to continue on, whether I'm in it or not.
Right.
So let's make the most of it. So I still had my health for the most part. I still was able to do, and we did. And we continued on. And then it got through the middle of 2016, where I started just little mundane things. I started feeling a little more tired. I wasn't sleeping well. I was getting sick. I'd get sick with something, and they would take me a long time to get over. And then a week would go by, and I'd be sick into something else. And then as 16 continued, and over through Christmas, it got to the point where I knew it was not good. And then treatment started in February of 17. And the things that Vanessa was talking about, like the pulling over in the parking lot, and because she knew what she was coming home to, because it wasn't pretty. I was a miserable bear because I couldn't sleep. I had body rash. I had itches. I couldn't breathe. Nose is constantly running. It was just one thing after another, and it just wasn't pretty.
What about retirement, Mike? Was this a consideration at all?
No, it's a work-related injury, the type of cancer I have, so it's through work. So I was
It's called presumptive, is that
presumptive
the word?
legislation? Yeah, there's I think 14 or now 21 different types of cancers that it's been deemed to have been caused by exposure to my work, and this was one of them. Fortunately, because financially I was able to keep getting a paycheck, even though I would not have been able to work for those 2 years. And retirement happened because it just worked out that I hit my 30 years and I was able to go, and I'd been out of the workforce for 2 years. And I just thought it's better to go on. And
What drove you? What was the key thing that you guys said, okay, I'm not going to let this knock me down?
well, because she said I couldn't leave her.
We still had things to do.
So it's like, we
Well,
can't.
you're a golfer.
I'm a golfer. I'm a mountain biker. We camp. We RV. We have a trailer. We go walking with the dog. And I'm too young to pack it all in, and I got too much stuff to do.
You know,
So
I just truly, not to interrupt you, but I truly believe that a lot of it is attitude. And his mother was diagnosed, like he said, a little just before him. She was supposed to be dead within a year. She's still alive.
It was sooner than that, wasn't it? So what did your mother go through? Your mother,
Yeah.
she was first diagnosed
So-
with brain cancer.
diagnosed with brain cancer, which came from lung cancer. Then she had bladder cancer. Then some lung cancer came back, and as luck would have it, they just found in her appointment last month that she has some more cancer on her bladder, and that she's going to be going in January for an operation to cut some of that out. And they feel they're pretty confident they can get it. But she's just, her attitude is, yeah, I'm good. We're just going to
You give her a call and
we're
say,
going to roll.
how are you today? Oh, I'm good today.
And she says, there's no point in worrying
There's no
about it
point.
because I can't do anything about it. So I'm going to make the most of what I can.
You think
And
that's where your
oh yeah, I'm
mindset
sure.
came from?
Oh, I'm sure.
Because it is a lot. It is a lot to do with mindset, isn't it? Because you can worry as much as you want. How are you today?
I'm good today. I got a good bill of health.
Do you think it has anything to do with your fitness level?
Oh, I'm sure it is. Well, my doctors even said it has. Because I'm
Because
fit
they
and
loaded
strong.
you with chemo, didn't they?
He had more options with me because I was strong. I was fit. When you're looking at the drugs on the shelf, well, what can we give this guy? He went right
Give
to
him
the
the
far
full-
end. He went
full
full
Monty.
Monty. Yeah.
What can you give our listeners a takeaway? What have you learned from all this?
Just to not give up. Really, I know it's a cliche, and we would try to stay away from the cliches, but it's really when you're throwing a curveball, it affects you and many around you. And if you give up, then you're forcing all those around you to give up, because you're what they're standing for. And if you're pulling the chute, they've got nothing. You're taking that away from them. So just stiff upper lip. Just keep going. Just understand what you got, what you got in front of you, and one step at a time.
Vanessa?
For me, I can probably honestly say that it has made me a stronger person and stronger than I ever thought I could be. And not only in the face of
You
adversity.
probably were strong. You just didn't realize it.
Right. And it's, unfortunately it took something like this to make me realize it, but I feel stronger now with anything, not just adverse, the face of adversity, but I also feel stronger in positive things in my life. I'm more willing to take chances and more willing to do things. And I would say it's all because of this.
Like through work, like she just went through her captain's exams. And there was a time when she's like, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can. And she
Yeah.
did. She went through,
And
she's on the list. So
guys, thanks for taking the time to come in and talk to us.
Thanks for having us.
It's been overwhelming.
Since I did this interview with Mike and Vanessa, Vanessa was just one of 4 women in the world to actually break the 2-minute barrier, and she's the only woman in the world over 40 to break that 2-minute barrier, which is considered, the 2 minutes is considered the gold standard for both men and women. That's it for this week, everybody. I'll be back next week with another interesting guest.